Welcome back, everyone. So I haven't done a video in about 2 weeks because it takes a while for me to find things that I actually want to respond to. Part of that is just that my real life gets in the way, and part of that is it takes a really long time to sift through all the bullshit you find online and find something worth responding to. If you're one of my viewers, and by the looks of it you're not since I don't have any subscribers, but if you see something you might like me to respond to, or you see something I might like to respond to, feel free to send it to me either in the channel comments or on Twitter, whichever is easiest for you. And don't forget to like and subscribe if you're enjoying the content. Lets me know that there's people out there that actually want to hear what I have to say, and you know, that can be a nice thing. Now, before we go any farther today, you may notice a difference in the audio quality for this one. Well, that's because I picked up some very good pointers on audio from Bearing's recent video, and I'm trying to improve that as much as possible. Now, I still have a crappy mic, but the audio software does allow me to get rid of those annoying background noises, and that alone makes a big improvement. Hopefully you guys can listen now without being annoyed by my AC anymore. Okay, enough of my bullshit for now. So what's the topic today? I'm sure you guessed it by the title. I figured it's probably about time for me to voice my opinion on all this non-binary, gender spectrum, social construct stuff. So let's meet today's pleasant but very confused young man and dive right into this circus.
Gender is a spectrum. It's complex. Male and female is very biological, and it's how most people today still perceive gender to be. But gender isn't quite so binary.
Yes, it is. Look, you begin your point of view with a flawed premise, which I gather you kind of have to in order for the rest of this drivel to make any sense, but a house of cards built on a foundation of sand isn't going to be very sturdy. Gender is binary. The problem I think you SJWs are having with this particular issue is that you are all trying to make gender something that it simply isn't. That is, you're trying to make gender this description of preferences, attitudes, orientations, emotions, etc. that defines everyone. Now, I find that a little ironic since you're the same people who are always trying to get rid of traditional gender roles, and yet here you are just creating new ones. What you're about to embark on here is mental gymnastics to categorize feelings, preferences, and behaviors as a gender, and that's just not what gender is. Gender is just a simple classification category based on every member within that category having certain similar traits. In this particular case, gender is based on biological similarities that all members of this group share, i.e., genitals. It's no more complicated than that. It's just a scientific category used for simplicity when discussing a sexually dimorphic species, nothing more. It does not say that every member of this group is exactly the same in every respect. In this case of humans, no group could ever do that because we're all very different when you get down to specifics. But in scientific terms, we all share some basic biological traits that classify us as humans. The same thing for gender. We all fit into one of two categories based on genitalia, or if you prefer, our role in the reproductive gene pool. We either pass on our genetics through sperm or through eggs. That's it. Which way you pass on your genes determines which gender you fit into. There's no need whatsoever to complicate it farther than that. Science is about simplification, not complication.
I recently had a discussion with my mum where she reiterated her view that gender is in fact a very binary system because that's the way God created things. And as we sort of discussed this idea, it all did boil down to genitalia, whereas obviously male genitalia denotes being male and female genitalia denotes being female.
Well, God doesn't have anything to do with this, really. These are terms invented by humans to make classifications easy when discussing various life forms. But your mother does seem to have the gist of it. Perhaps instead of listening to some brainwashing college professors pushing a narrative that suits their needs, you should spend more time listening to your mother.
But when you consider that gender itself is a societal construct, it becomes a little bit more difficult to support the claim that gender is a purely binary system.
No. Stop right here, because what you're about to talk about is gender roles, not gender. See, this is where all you folks immediately head off the rails into crazy town. You're talking about roles, not gender. I have absolutely no problem whatsoever if you folks would like to throw away gender roles and let everyone do whatever they're inclined to do regardless of their gender. A woman wants to work on cars? Great, no problem. A man wants to do needlepoint or something? Fine by me, don't care at all. But liking or doing things does not change their gender.
Yes, there is male genitalia and female genitalia, but that doesn't necessarily mean that the societal constructs of being male and being female are exclusive to a person's genitalia. So that's what I'm going to talk about here.
See? You're divorcing gender from gender roles. Those are two completely different things.
So there's tons of different gender identities, and I won't even be able to cover all of them in this video.
Well, thank God, because I've gone through that Tumblr list, and it's a gigantic list full of bullshit.
But I want to just start by detailing what some of these identities are and what they mean. So there's cisgender, which refers to a person that identifies as their biological gender, such as biologically male, biologically female, and they choose to identify that way.
Yeah, these are just called sane people. We don't really need to make up a new word for that.
Then there is demigender, which is a person that identifies only partially with a certain gender. Now this is a gender that is important to me because when I found out about it, it sort of made a lot of sense to me. Being demigender for me means that I do identify as a man, just not completely. I'm not fully convinced by everything that being a man tends to represent in society.
See, there you go again, conflating gender roles with gender. Now, given what you're saying here, it's pretty obvious that what you mean is that you don't identify with everything the traditional male gender role represents. I doubt anyone identifies with everything a specific gender role, but aren't we trying to get rid of traditional gender roles anyway and encourage people to just enjoy whatever they enjoy? So then, if you don't completely identify with this particular role, who cares? Doesn't change your gender, just your preferences. You're still a man.
Mainly, I don't identify with a lot of what it is to be a man, but I still choose to identify as a man and not as a woman because I feel I identify more with that gender than I do with being female. Now, when I came out to some of my friends as demigender, they had this impression that I was doing it just because of gender stereotypes, and that being demi-man for me was just my way of making things more convoluted in my life, and I could just be a man and just sort of deny the gender stereotypes. And I've had it argued that it's more positive to identify as a cisgender man who doesn't conform to gender stereotypes than to actually not identify as cisgender at all. Now, this is a complicated issue, and while I agree that it's really important to fight gender stereotypes as much as possible, it became really difficult for me to justify identifying as cisgender when I just didn't. I couldn't identify with so much of what it meant to be a male individual. It just didn't make sense to me.
Your friends are right. It's just that simple. Look between your legs. Do you have a penis? Then you're a male. That is all there is to it. Nothing else. Penis equals male. End of story. Done. You can behave however the hell you like. Doesn't change your gender. Now, let's skip along quite a bit here because this next part of yours is just a convoluted mess of personal stories and preferences and whatever. It doesn't change the fact that you're still a man. Move on.
But I want to talk about some of the other identities and where other people identify on that spectrum. So along with being demi-man, there's also people that are gender fluid, which means that they can fluctuate between a more male gender and a more female gender.
No, it means what they like, what they don't like, their preferences. That stuff changes. Their emotions, not their gender.
There's also people that identify as non-binary, which means that they choose not to identify as male or female, and they refer to themselves with gender-neutral pronouns, such as they or them.
Yes, and we call these people stupid.
It's really important to talk about pronouns and to respect people's pronoun choices.
And if you want to be called he or she, I will respect that. What I will not do is bastardize the English language by referring to a singular person by a plural pronoun.
So there's lots of other gender identities. There's agender, which is someone who doesn't identify with gender at all.
Whether you choose not to call yourself a man or a woman doesn't change the fact that you still are one of these two things.
So thank you so much for watching this video. I hope it was helpful. I apologize again for not covering everything and for not explaining all of the identities absolutely, because they're, again, so complex.
No, by all means, don't apologize for not covering them all. Thank God you didn't. I've already had enough nonsense for one day. I already skipped a lot of your stuff in your video because it's just unnecessarily complicated crap anyway. So, on behalf of myself, thank you for not covering the rest of your convoluted crap.
Again, thank you so much for watching, and I love you all, and I will see you in my next video. Bye-bye. Mwah.
Look, you seem like a decent enough kid, and I think you're genuinely trying to be a good person, which is why I'm not yelling, making fun of you, or calling you names here, but you are, unfortunately, a very confused young man. You spent too much time listening to the SJW bullshit narrative, and I'm genuinely sorry to see it. The only advice I can really give you at this point is stop. Just stop listening to the nonsense. Be your own person, and to hell with what others think. You don't have to buy into this gender spectrum social construct horse shit to be exactly who you are now. You're a young man who happens to like some of the same things that women like. Big deal. You don't have to be a made-up gender for that. You're a man who doesn't fit the traditional gender role, but you're still a man. Throw off gender roles altogether and just be you. You don't have to make up new genders to accomplish that. My advice is the same for anyone else out there too. Ignore all this gender fluidity nonsense. Gender is just biological category, not behavioral determinism. You be whoever you want to be, and never mind all this labeling shit. When you start boiling things down to the specifics that some of these so-called genders do, you're basically describing an individual anyway. Individuals aren't categories. They are unique in their own ways, and there's nothing wrong with that. You don't need to shove yourself into some fruity little made-up box to do it. Just be you, and fuck what everyone else thinks. That's it for this time, folks. Thanks for watching. Remember to like and hit that subscribe button. I'll see you all next time.